Another primary election is in the books. Although there were no statewide issues or big races, Ohioans across the state made their voices heard on local issues and candidates today.
In Marysville, voters defeated an $8.4 mill operating levy by a 13-point margin. Marysville Exempted Village Schools says it was the first new operating levy since 2008 and would have gone toward maintaining school programs, daily operations, and costs associated with the district's growing student body.
In Licking County, voters approved an income tax levy of 1.75% for Walnut Township local schools. That will be in place for the next 10 years.
NBC4 is your local election headquarters. From liquor options to school levies and mayoral races, we have all the results of today's primary election scrolling at the bottom of your screen and on our website, NBC4i.com.
And now that the polls have closed in this year's May primary, low key, officials are looking ahead to some upcoming elections.
NBC4 State House reporter Natalie Fahmy is here to tell us how the state's top election official is making sure Ohio is ready to vote. Natalie.
Secretary of State Frank LaRose tells me this May primary probably cost the state somewhere around or less than $12 million, but says it's budgeted ahead of time despite turnout expectations.
We've seen record-shattering turnout in Ohio in 2018, 2020, 2022. All of those were just off the charts, and Ohioans were taking advantage of all the easy ways to vote, early, absentee, or in person. Contrast that with, days like today. Yeah, you do tend to see a smaller turnout.
LaRose tells me, on top of ensuring that counties, with the help of the state, are well funded for elections at the baseline, he tries to make sure there are more than enough resources.
What I've attempted to do is bring in funding for new voting machines, for cybersecurity improvements, for poll worker training, for example, all things where the state pitches in to help the counties with the cost.
This election, there were new laws for voters to keep in mind, and LaRose says this was the best time to implement them for the first time.
That is a routine practice in elections administration, that if you're going to put a new law in place or start fielding new equipment, for example, you want to do it in years like this. You would never want to implement big changes like that in a presidential or gubernatorial.
He tells me, despite the low voter turnout, they did not see any major issues in the new photo ID requirements, saying most voters already go to the polls with one. But if you don't have a photo ID, LaRose wants to remind you that you can now get one for free.
I don't think it's going to be a huge number of people that are taking advantage of that, but throughout this year and into next year, we're going to keep getting the word out that there's no reason to skip an election. There's no reason to be left out.
Right now, the next scheduled election is in November. You could be voting on issues to amend the state's constitution in areas like reproductive rights and recreational marijuana. Colleen?
All right, thanks, Natalie.